Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Jacob Wile here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And Rohith Dhar.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we find ourselves in the midst of Disney's big venture to the world of streaming, even started a war in the process. It would be nice to stay up to date on the ever-growing catalog, and well, what's a must or a bust on Disney Plus? And tonight, we bring you Star Wars Visions Volume 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for those of you that do not know, and that's probably a few of you, what this is Star Wars. The first volume of Star Wars Visions was solely focused on anime. Was focused on studios in Japan. For this season, they went global, bringing in a worldwide collage of Star Wars vignettes from well-known and even some minorly known studios around the world. So, how are you guys coming down on this then?
Rohit.
Okay, I just didn't know who to start. I will say it overall. First off, I watched the first volume when it came out in 2021, and appreciate for the most part what it did. I think it was a great sort of piece or side venture in the world of Star Wars, where unique creators and storytellers from anime and just sort of the Japanese side of animation were able to have their take or have their voice in the world of Star Wars. And now with this, the second season, I think it's a step up. Not to say that the first season was bad, but the second season and having such a wide, diverse array of voices, animation styles, and all animation, this is just wonderful. I couldn't envision just how, and no pun intended, the quality of visual storytelling, just in terms of the colors, in terms of the way, you know, characters are aligned and shot layout, and just sort of the wide landscape and vistas that you can see in certain shorts. It was a visual feast, but also what I appreciated on sort of a storytelling and just writing substance level was that each story in a way fed in and sort of there's sort of some through lines in terms of spirituality, in terms of familial bonds, in terms of resistance and vying for hope. So it's interesting for those themes to be through lines throughout most of these shorts, even in spite of different tones, different animation styles, different sort of character archetypes and beats. So it was both unique and sort of cohesive in a way that I really appreciated. And overall, I think this is a great thing for not just Star Wars fans or even animation fans, but just fans of good storytelling, especially short form storytelling, to just watch any of these in any particular order and appreciate the quality of work that's put into it by the animators at each respective studio.
Dragon?
Yeah, so I do like me a good anthology series or an anthology piece. Like, I've seen I mean, I like the vignetted style, I like that kind of like that concept. I've always kind of gone back to a lot of people cite the Animatrix. I cite Gotham Knights. Well, now there's several Gotham Knights, but I mean, the anime, the original. I think there was like three of them. So the original one.
Yeah, the original animation trilogy, like to capitalize on the Christopher Nolan.
Well, Gotham Knight specifically, that's the difference. The S. Now we add the S, and now it's getting all confused. But Gotham Knight,
Basically, the one to capitalize on the Christopher Nolan movie.
exactly. Anyway, yeah. So of course, we talked about the first Visions when it came out. I don't know where I'm coming down in comparing the two, because when I rewatch all the shorts, it's that I like it. I do like the diverse melting pot that we have going on here. How we've kind of gone broader with like the different styles with the studio, because with the mostly kind of Asian, kind of Japanese stuff that we did in the first season, it obviously fit in with kind of the essentially the point of inspiration for Star Wars with Kurosawa and all that sort of stuff. So that was on brand. So that was fine. I don't mind like going for like like all around the globe. This go around because it kind of captures like we go to so many different planets that are again either in reference to film or like the films from different cultures that we've gotten over the years. Again with kind of like going old school with kind of like how we're capturing serials and one's Kurosawa and others are like we're going a little Gunga Din. We're doing a little everything. I think for me though, the issue I had, I do like the thematicism, but the one issue I found rewatching it that was really prevalent on a rewatch that really got to me is that we really rinsed and repeat the force sensitive children thing. That really that got old after a while on the rewatch. Like, man, we are doing that. Even episodes that are really standalone, like, okay, we have a really good story here, and then at the end, force sensitive kid. Like, we couldn't go one short without the force sensitive kid. Really? I mean, I know obviously there's at least one short in here that does not have the force sensitive kid, but it's just I mean, I know there's thematicism, and I like how certain thematicisms are the themes are carrying over, particularly within two shorts in particular, how we kind of broach these themes and we do it really well. But just aside from that, it's just we have so much diversity in our looks and kind of our character designs and everything, but it feels like we're kind of pulling the ripcord on like we have to have a Jedi, we have to have specifically the Force as we usually showcase it, at least at some point during almost all of these. So, that's like my main criticism of this season. But overall, I mean, I like it. I don't know if I like it more than the first season, but I mean, I do. I did enjoy it. So like anything, some shorts played a little stronger than others, but overall, it was a good anthology piece. Yet again, I'm excited for more visions.
Yeah, before we went live, Rohit and I were like theorizing that since there's like every 2 years apart, maybe we'll get the next one in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it would make sense, as given all the work that has to go into these, especially because I think we had some stop motion shorts this time around. You have to imagine, man, a lot of time went into these.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I guess my piece on this is like I'm kind of like getting probably like a little bit higher than Dragon, but maybe a little bit lower than Rohit. Like it's like I will go on the statement that I probably do not like probably not as good in terms of like as like an overall piece, probably not as good as the first season, but like I think some of the individual shorts kind of match or even surpass some of the original season shorts. But I think one of the biggest things, like of course, like obviously the different visual storytelling, the all kinds of different styles of humor, difference of storytelling. And while there's some kind of universal themes in there, I don't think that's entirely a bad thing. It's like it because even though the story is universal, the influences of the culture necessarily are not. So I think that makes them from takes an interesting perspective on that.
Yeah, I think to respond to Blue Dragon's point, in all fairness, for the first season, I'm looking at it right now. I think probably really like all the episodes had Jedi or Force sensitive, people involved. So I guess like not to sort of try to discount the point, but I think there is something interesting to be said about how for a lot of the foreign studios that work on both versions, both Volume 1, Volume 2, like they go to the Jedi, or just the idea of like be connected to the Force. And I think there was something that some brought as criticisms, like for the vision stuff, for all the diversity, it's like we don't really go focus on things that aren't connected to the Jedi or the Force, or even just like beyond like what I've noticed for this volume in particular is that there's a good number of shorts that were set in the like in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and it's like, and maybe one or two shorts that were like out of time or even before like the prequel trilogy. So there are certain kind of patterns that are there. So maybe in the volume 3, I'm hoping to sort of maybe go beyond the Jedi, even though I enjoyed most of this. But I think there's something to be said about how I think what the point about the Force Sensitive children, when I'm seeing all these shorts laid out on the screen, I do see there are some patterns that show up. So
I mean, Rohit, even if that is the case, doesn't it feel like, given that we had 2 episodes here, and they're pretty good episodes, pretty good shorts too, that did not rely on the Force really at all, and doesn't it feel like we should shake it up, like when we get to like the if we get a third season of this, like we should get out of the pattern a little bit, just in general,
No,
like, or
I
do you
think
think Visions means like entirely this is basically like overseas studios takes on Jedi, but in their own art form? Like, what do you think?
I think
Visions is the title.
I think part of it's that like I could see because the thing is with Jedi, there's such an interesting aspect of Star Wars that's unique to Star Wars and not to any other sci-fi or fantasy property. And the whole idea of the Force has like real world, foundations in Buddhism and just Eastern religion. So for some studios that have that kind of particular background or historical knowledge, or just to have that particular connection, that's kind of a way in. So and also part of it's like because it's animation, maybe it's sort of the thing where like not maybe not to put a cynical spin on it, but it's probably the notion that for kids, Star Wars, lightsabers is kind of the big visual, attraction, and whereas a story that's just focused on like rebel troopers, stormtroopers, or smugglers, like people that are bringing blasters, like it could just be on a other like sci-fi thing. Whereas lightsabers, like that's Star Wars.
I mean,
Not to say that like I wouldn't want more stories that focus on non-force sensitive or force using people. I'm open to that, but
and to be fair, some of the even some of the shorts that do focus on lightsabers, I wouldn't even call them very kid friendly.
Well, no.
true.
I mean-
but unfortunately, in the U.S., there's still a good portion of the public that have the kind of association with animation being kid friendly, which still shouldn't be. Which I think is less and less true each passing year. But there's still that contingent of people. So
I mean, I prefer at least this is more general audience stuff than anything.
yeah, no, this is something that all family members of varying ages can appreciate, and especially the one of them is like a mom and daughter duo, so that's and this is kind of perfect timing because Mother's Day is coming up soon.
Mm-hmm. One could say it's intentional.
One could also say it's coincidental.
Oh, well, I guess you could say that too, yeah.
I mean, I think it's more for Star Wars Day, obviously.
Well, that too. I mean, yeah, it probably is more. So, again, they're covering a bunch of holidays.
I mean, it's a good coincidence, though, Dragon. I'm not going to deny.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get started.
All right, that brings us to episode 1, Sith.
So, again, folks,
from El Guiri Studios in Spain.
So, again, folks, what we're doing here, we're going to be kind of covering the highlights of these. But first off, just to highlight our studios. So El Guiri. So this is a Spanish this is a studio from Spain. Of course, I remember Brad Bird always famously saying, when he was working on The Incredibles, like some of the best CG animators were all Spaniards. So it's like when you need animation done, go to the Spaniards. But yeah, so these guys, honestly, of all the studios that we have here, these guys are pretty much full on up and comer. Like I think they have like one short to their name, if any. I forget if it's a short or it's a film that they produce themselves. These guys are pretty much off the books. These guys are in Spain. I speculate. I could be wrong here. I meant to look into this, do a little due diligence. I mean, I have to imagine some of these guys worked on Spider-Verse because we're using that Spider-Verse animation technique on this one. I mean,
I'm on so just to add to your thing, I'm on their website right now. So looking at it, they do not contribute any animation to Spider-Verse. I did agree, Blue Dragon, though, and seeing it's like, wow, this was very influenced by Into the Spider.
That's what I'm saying. It looks a lot. I was shocked to find out they did. As far as I can see, officially they had no involvement in Spider-Man. My assumption is maybe the individuals worked on it, perhaps, but yeah. I can't find it.
According to the website, they've had experience in Tales of Arcadia, Troll Hunters, Incredibles, Wall-E, Ratatouille, Cars, and many more. And they have this one short called Alma, and then another short that's called One Morning with Three Ellipses, which is a VR experience, which that sounds really interesting to do a VR experience in animation. But
the neat thing about this whole kind of like high-profile project for any of these studios really is that like some of these studios are relatively new. Some of them do have some history, but even for the newer one, that's a good way to get their name out there, and show people what they can do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't find any of the Disney connection you listed there. I guess I don't know. I mean,
Well, I mean,
I know that I've heard of the director of the short, Rodrigo Blas. I know I've heard his name. Like he worked on Troll Hunter. Like he was one of the directors of Troll Hunter.
Okay, that's probably that's what it is. Probably where I had found that. Then. Okay.
I recognize his name from like the Tales of Arcadia series, like that.
Anyway, yeah, we do have Troll Hunters talent on this later on. We're going to get to like big Troll Hunters talent, but anyway. So yes. Anyway, so we so Geary. So anyway, let's break down kind of the highlights here. So striking look again with that Spider-Verse-esque kind of aesthetic. Only it's more of a painted effect versus like the comic dots effect. Right? Do you remember what the name of the comic dots technique is again?
It's a Kirby Crackle.
Well, I know there's Kirby Crackle, but I mean I mean specifically like the little comic pointillism sort of thing, like when you
mean like newsprint.
Yeah, like the newsprint look, but there's like a name for it. There's like all like the if you zoom in on the if you zoom in on a comic, you see it's a series of ink dots. Like if you zoom in like real close to it, like not Kirby Crackle or Kirby dots, but like just anyway.
Ink blot cartoon.
I guess, but I think there's a real name where I don't think we're gonna get it. But point being, yeah, so instead of like kind of the comic newsprint sort of look, we have kind of like we're going like a painted effect to go with our characters. I think Lola is her name.
Yes.
Yeah, so like going with Lola's kind of like painter aesthetic. Now, one of the fascinating things I've always wanted to see explored more in Star Wars.
Her name was Lola.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One of the things that we explore here that I've always kind of found fascinating in Star Wars that we don't do enough of, and usually when we do it, it's usually at the very end of the character's life before they get killed, or at least in quotes killed because it's Star Wars. But the idea of redeeming, of kind of giving layers to a Sith character, in this case an ex-Sith character. The idea Lola used to be a Sith and she kind of walked away from it, and she's gotten into painting.
But of course, the past comes back to haunt her, and her nightmares from that are seeping into her painting.
But yeah, it's a fascinating idea. Like in Star Wars, I think I always wanted the sequel trilogy to get into more, which they kind of walked up to the line, but they never really went full tilt with it. Is exploring the middle ground between the light side and the dark side, and kind of how the two relate to each other. And we did it in a very visually expressionistic way. Here, like the last shot of this thing is, the three colors. We got the red, we got the blue, and in the middle we got the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting that Rey, in the movies, ultimately, we see her at the very end. She has a yellow lightsaber, and she has a little bit of dark side in her as well. So I think there's a lot of like what if we gave Rey a little bit more, we fleshed out a little bit more Rey's choices in The Rise of Skywalker. I think it'd look a little something like this.
It is kind of interesting because we don't really see a lot of like outside of like Sabine and Rebels, like we don't see a lot of artists in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So doing something, and I would have to say she's on a very different level than Sabine is.
No, for sure. I mean, she's essentially painting a planet, and I like how the planet is kind of like this blank canvas effect. Like there's a lot of white in this, and then of course, as you see in the poster here, it's like she's in this big old white space,
mm-hmm.
and it's just she uses the force to throw around paint and everything. It looks cool.
I must say, it's the first one to open the season, open the volume with. I should say they definitely picked one that was like, oh yeah, this season's going to be very different from the last one.
This is a very strong opener for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I like ultimately the idea her Sith master comes there saying like, hey, it's kind of following the whole Return of the Jedi idea of like kill me and take my place sort of logic.
Mm-hmm.
Which technically she does kill him, but she doesn't take his place, which is an interesting dichotomy there.
And again, that's the thing of like, we're choosing our own destinies, which again is the stuff we don't explore in Star Wars enough. The fact of like, let's bulk that tradition a little bit here. We've had like two trilogies of what we, of like how we've established the rules at this point. Let's change it up a little bit. Anyway, so it's the idea that It's fascinating because the relationship between the Padawan and the Sith and the Padawan and the Jedi. It's interesting how you have, well, I guess, the apprentice and the Padawan for the Jedi's is you have like kill me and take my place is like you've succeeded, now kill your master, versus like, hey, honor me when I either die in a very memorable fashion or I just fade in a bed like Yoda. So it's kind of always nice to see the differences between those two. But yes, ultimately, if she chooses her own path and goes out on her own terms after she, as she, vanquishes, like she plays into his hand, but accepts, what she's doing there. Which again, in dialogue, and just visually and everything we're doing here, just in the short runtime, is something we really needed to do with Rey and Palpatine in that movie.
like, like again, obviously the use of colors and all the symbolism it implies. It's like basically she's doing it, living her life on her own terms outside of the Sith, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, which again, I'm loving all this. So it was
It's like,
very
so
strong.
What do you guys think of the robot?
I like him.
Oh, he's great. I
He's
wish
cool.
I really liked the design, the way he moved. It's interesting because in another context, because of the way because he's all in black, you could see him pop up in like a Star Wars thing as like a bad guy robot, but
Yeah.
just the way he's very personalized or given a lot of character in the animation. It really made me endear him to him, but I really appreciated in this part is just sort of how she chooses not to be part of the Sith, but she doesn't explicitly state that she wants to be part of the Jedi, which is
Yeah, that's just great. That's the thing. She's not picking a side, really. She's just not dark side,
And as for the droid, like I love how he's like implemented into like the machinery around her.
I love that he's
Like
I love that he's got like a cool laser beam. Like like the way he blasts the bad guy was awesome.
I'm sure I'm dragging. I can probably only imagine like your reaction to when she like when she was in her vehicle and then turned to the side, she started blasting at everybody.
Yeah, it was great.
Like
Plus, I love a robot arm. It looks cool.
only you wonder what happened to her arm there. It's like it's a common thing in Star Wars, so it just might most likely cut off the lightsaber.
Yeah, but still, it's the fact that she has like a Sith look to her, but it'd be a lot more personable.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Like you can't imagine like Asajj Ventress like doing anything just kind of like leisurely, after in addition to her Sith stuff, it's like
who knows? Maybe that's the way to balance out the Sith. Just give them extracurricular hobbies.
give them hobbies.
If you think about it, it's like the whole idea. So for the whole ethos of like painting or just art is that you're expressing yourself, and between the Jedi and the Sith are more inclined or more open to exploring and expressing and embracing one's emotions, maybe to a fault. So I think it's sort of interesting to see someone that maybe is raised and grew up or was taught that kind of ideology and framework to transition to something where there is a level of emotional like attunement, but it's done in a more healthy, constructive way, and that's through art. So that is kind of a natural, if you really kind of squint and think about it, interesting sort of path for a former Sith member, and still have sort of a Sith basis of emotional embrace, but something less likely to murder people or cause chaos in the galaxy.
I mean, that is always the fascinating thing about the Jedi and the Sith is that the Jedi are more stringent about their rules, and that has also kind of led people to turn to the Sith. Where Sith's like, hey, it's like we're Club Med over here. Like, hey, come on, like embrace your hobbies and your feelings. Don't be closed off like a robot. Like, come on, let's.
I mean,
have all the kids you want, but just kill a few people on the side.
Yes.
Well, I mean, really, to sort of think about it is that for the Sith, it's all about kind of being possessed and attached to the things and people around you, and so art is such a personal. You're putting a piece of yourself out there where you work. So it is kind of interesting for Lola to kind of gravitate to that kind of particular activity where you're like all the art that you do and make, it is yours, and so there's a piece of you out there, and you kind of have a possessive relationship to a certain extent, even though in most contexts when if art was distributed around, it kind of leads to like the people decide. But it looks like here she's just doing art for her own like personal enjoyment. She's not a professional painter by any sense.
Plus, it's probably like good for her mental health, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, art therapy is sort of a thing, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people do draw to like relieve stress or like or to basically just to, as you said, express themselves. So I think that, but so basically overall, a strong way to start the season and visually and in storytelling.
And I think there's not, I don't know if y'all want to go in the comments already. There's one comment that actually makes a good point from Warp Monarch. Yes, the mirroring, and it's kind of interesting that the first episode, the first season, it was a black and white episode, and then this is all in color, and that's the whole theme of it being in color.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So, anything else to say about Sith or?
Mm-mm.
All right, that moves us on to Screecher's Reach from Cartoon Saloon out of Ireland.
Yes, so the big thing, the Cartoon Saloon's probably the second, second or third, depending on who you ask, but basically it's in it's not like the most iconic studio, but it's like, it's getting up there. It's getting really popular, and it's very heralded for its works. These guys best known for Wolfwalkers, which it was nominated for the Oscar. I don't believe it won.
The Secret of Kells as well.
Yep, which unfortunately is not about Kelsey Grammer.
And Breadwinners, I think. Not
Yeah,
Breadwinners.
the bread. No, not that's a show. But the Breadwinner.
The Breadwinner, right? I messed up there. So it's like yeah, it's like obviously drawing a lot from. Obviously, Breadwinner, I don't think was about Irish mythology, but a lot of their work does touch upon that, and that is seen here in this short too. And this short obviously draws upon like a lot of Irish mythology because obviously like the Banshee and everything as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or also like the main character. I'll try to remember her name.
Ball.
Yeah, Ball. The fact that she had that kind of like trinket and the way she was like addressing it and kind of relaying it a prayer. I was like, oh, this is kind of like a Star Wars way of like having a rosary and like saying your prayers to the
And speaking of Ball and Wolfwalkers, like she actually has there's a common voice actress between them. Ball voiced the actress of Ball voiced a character in the Wolfwalkers. So how are you guys coming down on this one overall?
I mean, I think I liked it more on the rewatch because it's good. I mean, I really love the art style of Cartoon Saloon with what they're doing here.
This is honestly probably like one of my like at least 2 or 3 favorites of this season.
I think what really excels in this is the way our big action set piece with the Sith, like the really kind of like, I guess expressionistic, kind of the expressionist take on the like the spirit Sith, which is like this woman who's possessed by a Sith, and essentially she's like when she's going after the girl, she's like red and black and like the lightsaber in utter darkness, and it's like a pursuit to the light and everything. Like, all that's great, all that looks great, and we're playing to the strengths of kind of the Irish folklore and everything, and kind of like the ghost story that's going on here. So all that was, I think, all that was quite standout. So that was good.
I don't know. Honestly, I can't explain it myself, but this is like, honestly I don't know where I would rank everything, like number wise, but this would definitely be in my top 2 or 3 for my favorite of the season.
It's up there. It was good. The Sith Mother had a really, the idea of the Sith Mother yet again, and this is where we're getting into kind of the runners and patterns here. Where again, I can't quite fault it because I'd be interested if they went this far, but given how the first season was, I don't think they can necessarily commit to this as if it were like a plan or anything. But part of me wonders if they could have done a full Sith season. Where this case essentially what?
No, I see. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's gradually.
But you got to admit, though, the whole Sith thing was a nice twist, though.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's a great twist, and that makes me. Initially, when I was watching this, I was thinking, "Wait a minute!" I forgot the duel from the first season, but I was thinking, "Wait a minute." is there like a running theme? Is this gonna be like an all Sith season because we're two in a row and we have like that twist with the Sith thing, which is a really good idea. And as I'm saying, they didn't end up doing that because I guess they didn't want to just be like like one. I mean, like yeah, evil, yeah,
It's like,
but more so just like we want a variety.
I mean, the ending of this episode. I mean, we're kind of jumping around with this one, but the ending of this episode is gut wrenching.
It is. I mean, she had to put that poor old lady out of her misery, which is horrible.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that it's revealed that the token is a Sith token,
Hmm.
and Ball, this innocent young girl, is leaving to become a Sith apprentice, and who
And
knows?
again, it's that logic of hey, you killed your predecessor, stay by my side.
And so it's like,
and also it's kind of a interesting parallel with Anakin. Um,
Hmm.
Instead of it, like uh, both individuals are in destitute circumstances and then are plucked, whether externally or join these like ancient institutions, whether Anakin being brought into the Jedi themselves or Dahl willingly choosing to go with the Sith. And it's interesting, sort of knowing how both the Jedi and the Sith have been, criticized, whether in or outside the universe, for their recruiting practices, especially of young children. It is interesting. It is certainly a dark ending when you really think about where Dahl is likely to go in her life as a Sith. It would be very. I hope that like in Visions Volume 3, there's like some shorts that have inadvertently sequels to other shorts. I love to see what Dahl is like, as the full Sith Lord.
her life could only get worse from here, honestly. I mean, I
Yep.
doubt. I mean, from the look. I mean, looking from the way she was like looking like tearfully back at her friends, like, "You gotta do what you can, right?
Don't
And
look back.
don't look back, right?"
Yeah.
And then like, I get and the way she's like clearly crying. It's like I don't see things going well for her.
And it's and what's crazy about it is that for the most part, the short kind of feels like it's sort of like an Amblin film
It's
that
almost like
takes place in Star Wars with like Irish speak sounding kids, and it's like, oh, they're fun, they're cute, and you're having fun, and there's the horror element, and it's like, oh, it's over, and then this, like,
it's kind of like a kind of maybe like a Stand By Me in a way, like a coming of age kind of thing. Like these kids wandering off, but it's like, oh, we're gonna go see the ghost. It's kind of like in Stand By Me where they go to see the dead body.
yeah, and then afterwards, like one of the kids just like,
In this case, one of the kids actually created the dead body.
Yes, in this case, yes.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia. I did not realize the Sith Mother is voiced by Angelica Houston.
Yep.
Hmm.
Man.
She wasn't in the short long, but she had a presence.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
It's like a ghostly, ethereal presence. Like
I wonder if there's a version of this short in writing the script out where her last goal, her last quest task to do before fully joining the Sith was like she had to kill off her friends, and it was like no, and Disney was like, nope, let's not go too far.
well, I think for the most part, the studios had creative freedom for the. I mean, some of the shorts, as you see, I mean, this short got away with some mild cursing as far as we saw.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so maybe Disney did do some interference, but I think for the most part they had pretty much creative freedom and chose to do it that way. And it
Mm-hmm.
might just been more of like a cartoon saloon decision.
That
Yeah.
cartoon
No,
Saloons has a bunch of sick puppies, and those puppies usually wolves, which is why probably Dave Filoni. I can imagine Dave Filoni saying, "Wolves, I'm sold. Let them do whatever they want."
Like Dave, you don't have to. You don't have to wear a costume for this, right, Dave?
I'm sorry. Am I in charge here, or am I not in charge? Yes, you're in charge. Am I Do you see the hat? Do you see it? Okay.
I am Mrs. Nesbit.
No. I am Trapper Wolf.
Here's a good comment from the Warp Monarch regarding this episode.
Yes, the contrast between situations that Doll's friends are suffering, but they had each other's family. On the other hand, Doll may have had her freedom, but now she is alone. That is a good point. Yes, and
Yeah.
she's following her friend's advice too to get to that point, which is really what's heartbreaking about that. He said, like, "Hey, if you have an opportunity to get away from here, man, you should do it."
And
Mhm.
you could tell that the friends really were like obviously they didn't even cry, but you could tell they felt betrayed by her.
Oh no, I think one or two of the kids were crying, or at least one. Of
The oldest kid wasn't crying. He's like he's like staring at her in disappointment, like you betrayed us for this.
But recognition, because he told her to do that, though.
I mean, yeah, but yeah, just go into the cave, not kill, not join the Sith.
That's true. Like they didn't think, "Oh God, she's joining the people that are enslaving us," essentially.
The doll's response is like, they have dental.
They have a great dental plan.
Well, not that great. You've seen Palpatine's teeth.
Like, well, his teeth were fine before Mace Windu went after him.
Well, even so, I mean, think of like, okay, aside from maybe Count Dooku, like, what Sith has good teeth?
I don't know. I mean, Anakin had pretty good teeth before he went to the dark side.
That's what I'm saying, but then he got burned alive. It didn't last. He
Yeah,
was
but
only,
that's
like,
not a fault. But I mean, Count
ruin-
Dooku might have had some,
It did.
good
It did
shiny
ruin
teeth.
it. Yeah, he got burned by it, but didn't ruin his teeth.
Yeah, he had like 20. The point being, he only had like less than 24 hours of being like a Sith that was not burned alive. So I
Hey, occupational hazard as a Sith.
imagine like Darth Vader at the desert. They have to be like either in the tub or in the like the back in the back of the tank, or he's just gonna be like, okay, let me take the mask off. Ow, ow, ow! Do it fast, ow, ow! And then he puts it back on.
He's like, or maybe the back also cleans your teeth. I guess it has a good fluoride.
Well, I mean that's true.
Yeah, you never see people Star Wars brushing their teeth, or flossing, or mouthwash.
Or who knows? He said, who knows? Maybe like the blue milk has like maybe the blue milk and all that stuff has
Fluoride.
Yeah, it has good fluoride in it. Like maybe that's where the minty flavor comes from.
Okay, anyway, moving on.
I know, like we're not going to spend 10 minutes talking about how Darth Vader will torture Obi-Wan.
Anyway,
watch our Obi-Wan recap for the explanation behind that.
There are no cavities in the dark side.
Well, they do have cookies though.
Yep.
But yeah, like this episode is like, it's like like the childhood memories of like going out, finding and doing whatever you can, but obviously Doll is striving for a greater purpose in herself, or at least trying to find freedom. But unfortunately, she couldn't secure the freedom for her friends and only did it for herself. And like,
she changed from one set of chains to another.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said, when I first saw this episode, like this episode probably affected me more than any other one in this one in terms of like sheer like gut punching. It's like, oh my god. It's like I haven't really watched a lot of Cartoon Saloon stuff, and this definitely makes me want to check more of their stuff out. All right, another comment. Looks like we have, assuming this is canon, Akakiri, the dual creatures reach in dark and all taking place around the same time period. All right, that's a good point. So, should we move on to the next one? Or do you guys have anything more to say about Screecher's Reach?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us to In the Stars from Punk Robot Studio out of Chile.
Yes.
So currently the only one from South America in this.
Anyway, so these guys they did this. Apparently, they did a really interesting irreverent short called "I Am Little Red," which is kind of their take on a kind of a real world, kind of dramatic take on Little Red Riding Hood, in which I believe it was Little Red Riding Hood escaping from sex trafficking. That's at least what the description read. And there was they did this animated movie as well. They've done a couple shorts and they've done a feature. I think is Nalue and the Magic Book.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, the poster looked good. I have not seen the movie, obviously, because, I can only look up so much, and a lot of these are overseas studios, so some of it's kind of hard to find.
Like I said, this series is good exposure for them, at least.
For sure. So yeah, this has a nice stop motion look to it. I mean, the big highlight I have here is like our main characters, Koten and China, if I'm not butchering their names there.
For a while, it's hard for me to tell if it was like stop motion or CG.
That's I think this one. I think this one's up in the air. It could just be. I'm pretty sure it's stop motion though, because initially I thought it was Leica that did this before I kind of like before the name popped up.
I know there are at least two other stop motion short. Well, one stop motion, one clay motion. But like this, I mean, like there's probably some CG involved in this, like in some of the other stuff. But I think a lot of the characters, you're right, are probably stop motion.
Anyway, yeah. So this I like the sister dynamic. I like it has a lot of Lilo and Nami vibes from Lilo and Stitch going on here. We have some good world building here. It's the idea of the Empire just completely ravaged this planet. Killed off its populace either directly or indirectly. Which is the fact that it was like it reminded me a lot of this episode we saw of Avatar: Last Airbender, which is very accurate in terms of people building factories during wartime and doing a lot of damage to the environment. And we saw this is like the Painted Lady episode from season 3 of Avatar: Last Airbender.
There's the floaty connection, even though he left after season 1.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, but he was there in the Force.
Yes, he was there in the Force. Like he directed like the best episode of the first season, Siege of the North and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I still love his story, like how he was like working on there. Then he got the call from Lucas. And was like, yeah, George wants to be. It's like it's probably just a prank from the SpongeBob guys.
Well, to add on to this, it's also
but in this case, like the Empire came and draining their water. It's like, yeah, it's kind of eerie how accurate some of this stuff really is.
Well, not only that, but also this stuff was actually also addressed in in the first volume with Lope and Ocho, the rabbit girl, and their planet was being like extracted for resources by the Empire. So it is interesting for certain studios to kind of go to sort of an ecological lens in terms of addressing sort of the influence and severity of the Empire's reach.
It's kind of interesting considering that's another one. That's another story about sisters. That time, little kind of surrogate sisters. Whereas in La Panocho, the sisters break apart on opposite sides, where one of them joins the Empire. This one, they both oppose the Empire.
Yeah.
Well, I think also what's interesting because I know for Lo Panocho that was a Japanese studio, and this is Chilean. I think considering for both Japan and Chile, with sort of their histories dealing with sort of imperialism and industry and sort of ecological impact, it really makes some interesting subtext to see how those histories come to play in terms of the stories and particular themes that are emphasized for those two respective shorts.
I'd kind of like to see a short from Brazil.
Oh, maybe next season.
Yeah, who knows?
We're gonna run out of continents though at a certain point.
I mean, currently the only one that hasn't produced one is Antarctica.
I wonder if we have any good animation studios in Antarctica.
I mean, Antarctica is just like a bunch of research, camps or facilities.
Who knows? Maybe they can produce a live action short down there.
I mean, we haven't had
be set on Hoth.
I mean, there's Australia. Australia hasn't produced an animated.
That is true. Australia doesn't have one. They'd be an interesting one too.
Africa? Well, actually, did Africa?
New Zealand?
Yeah, literally one of the studios here is from South Africa.
Oh, the Pit one. Yeah, I gotcha. Dark.
No. The Pit was actually made in Japan.
No, okay. Which one am I?
The final one was made in South Africa.
Oh, that's right. Gotcha.
Anyway.
I mean, to be fair, like the Pit was actually made by a black-owned studio in Japan. So.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So that might be where some of the mix-up comes from.
Yeah.
I don't know though.
Okay. Anyway. But yes, this is good. I love how like precious water was in this, and the fact the whole like purification process with the water. But also, I mean, I like that we just the little details, like the paint effect looked really good. Like on the mother's, like I don't know if it was necessarily her grave, but essentially the stone that was representative of her grave. And they kind of like they did a little hand painting, and it was like really that looked really good.
Yeah, it's like I think there might actually be a hand drawn thing or like a 2D animation style there, which is pretty neat. How they like incorporated these different visual styles into this.
Mm-hmm.
I
So like an
really,
ATST.
yeah, I really like sort of how the force is interpreted or seen through that particular like indigenous culture's lens.
Like
So it makes you think about like for people who don't know the Jedi and don't know explicitly the idea, like the term the Force, but
like
have an idea of like its influence and its presence throughout all life, like how they interpret it. And I remember, I think there were certain episodes in the first season of Visions that kind of had that perspective about like a culture that was aware of the Force and everything, but a name. So it's cool to see how for these two they don't necessarily know about the Force or like the dark side and whatnot. They just know that their mother had this particular gift
like
and this,
mother's power.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that it was the older sister that ultimately had that power. It wasn't like we kind of subverted the whole force sensitive kid thing a little bit with the runner here. I mean, ultimately.
There's a force sensitive teenager.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
but in the end, it was both of them that were force sensitive.
Are you
Like,
sure about that?
Yeah,
Because
because they were both had their hands out. So I
well, I
feel
know they
like,
both had their
well,
hands out, but
definitely.
was she
Well,
just doing it like just because her sister was? You'd think she was actually
it's
wielding the force.
I mean, it seems like the younger one, like Chi, I think her name was. I don't remember. I can't honestly. I can't. I'm forgetting their
Yeah,
name.
to China.
To China, right? It's like she had more to do with like the paint ability than anything, and I think the older sister like actually had more with like the actual force abilities. It looks like.
I think with the fact that they had both their hands out, I think thematically the whole point was that the older sister was not believing or feeling that they could have this power, but
Like a lack of faith kind of thing.
yeah, and then she found out she had the power through her immense love for her younger sister, and then when both of them connected emotionally, they would then be able to both access the force and bring the water out.
It is kind of nice like have them like discover the powers of the force like to save somebody once again. Like it's always I'm always a sucker for that kind of stuff.
But what's also interesting is that the way that they approach the force, they approach it through being attuned emotionally with one another. Whereas at least how the Jedi talks about the force, they talk about your connection with it being sort of you have to be, detached or away from the world, and you kind of have to connect through the cosmological, force.
Like
And it's
connect to the entire universe.
yes, yes. And whereas this is more about connection through other people, and in this case like a sister bonding. So that was a pretty interesting way of approaching sort of the access to the force.
And of course, it was nice to see them take the whole operation down, and see the sky reopen to see all the stars again.
Yeah, and again, the
Yeah,
sky reopening illuminates like the hand paint that they've been doing for a while.
Although some people have interpreted the ending as like with two more stars appearing as they actually died after that. So what do you guys make of that?
But I mean, I think they're alive.
I mean, I like to think they're alive too. But
that was just they just thought like, oh, like as they brought the water down they drowned in it, and then that's just like
I mean, like they survive, they get to the water, but then after that the stars go up, and it's like people think they died.
Basically, they're thinking it's the opening of Beetlejuice. Like, oh yeah, they were hurt. They returned home drenched, but they did not know the horrible truth yet.
yeah. I think this comment from Warp Monarch is pretty, as I think where I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's what I was thinking too. I didn't think it had anything to do with them being dead or anything. And, I mean, I don't think they're trying to go for like a sudden downer ending. I think they were trying to go for like an uplifting ending in this case.
Yeah, I feel like I really read that there is probably the same person that thinks like all the characters in Ed and Eddie are in hell or something like that, or just in cartoon. They're in purgatory or whatever.
I think they call those like creepy pastas or something. I don't know.
No, creepypastas is just that's a whole different thing.
Okay,
the whole like lost episode, like they're in purgatory, those kind of like subsections of creepypastas.
Okay.
Like, oh yeah, it's like honestly, like I'm going to go like, yeah, it's just an uplifting ending. They might be the last two left of their kind, but obviously they still have there's obviously some bittersweetness in the ending, but obviously it's still hopeful at the end.
Yeah,
because again, they are still like the only two people on that planet because all their people have been wiped out by the Empire. But like, hey,
or at least left on that island, from what I understand.
Fine, on that island, but it's like, hey, there's hope. Life can go again now that we've gotten rid of the pollution. Like we're doing it right. Mom would be happy. Yay!
It's like, especially after the gut punch of the previous episode, an uplifting ending was kind of needed in that one.
Yeah.
You know how like there's a compliment sandwich? You kind of have for like you had to have like sort of a gut punch sandwich where like the bread is like the two happy endings and in the middle is like the dark or bittersweet ending.
Yeah, the Sith had a happy ending. Screecher's Reach obviously had a gut wrenching ending, and this has an uplifting one. It's like, so do you guys have anything more to say, or should we move on to the next one?
Let's move on.
And this next one's from a heavy hitter. I Am Your Mother from Aardman Animations out of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, so this is probably the most well-known studio of the whole lot. Of course, Aardman, they always do great work. I mean, just like a litany of things I can mention. I guess two of the cliff notes would be Wallace and Gromit, all Wallace and Gromit, Chicken Run, and the Pirates movie.
And let's see, they also did like Shaun the Sheep and Flushed Away as well.
Well, yeah, I was kind of focused on the more like traditional stop motion, but yes.
Well, I mean, and not to mention, they also technically dabbled in computer animation with Arthur Christmas.
Well, that's why I was not mentioning Arthur Christmas, but yes.
Let's talk about the stuff they're known for. And you know what time it is, guys? It's time for me to unleash my world famous Gromit impression.
Oh, Rohith, you gotta see this. He's really good at this. Watch him do it. Just listen carefully. Jacob, do the Gromit impression.
3, 2, 1.
How does he do it? It's flawless. I mean, he does Gromit better than Gromit. Right? I mean, it's uncanny.
Yeah, it's like years and years of practice.
Oh my god.
I mean, there's so
few moments
honestly,
honestly,
I'm prideful. I'm proud of Jacob.
If you don't know like what those shorts, like you haven't seen any of those shorts, that joke would not have landed. Like
anyway.
Oh man.
Yeah, Gromit.
Okay, so I'm Your Mother. This is typical fare for Aardman. They did an excellent job here. You have a long story short, plot here is Wedge Antilles. He's opening a flight academy. I believe we're after
with the role reprise too.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're probably after A New Hope, like setting wise on this. I think.
No, I think we're after Return of the Jedi.
Okay, so you're thinking we're fully after everything instead of just that. Okay, I guess that makes sense.
It's not really made clear.
Well, you don't need to know one way or another.
I don't know. I mean, the fact that like he's selling merchandise, like he
I guess an Easter egg of Luke Skywalker's severed hand. Yeah, it probably is after Return of the Jedi.
And we didn't see, we didn't really see a big Imperial presence. So I guess it makes sense as a reason.
It is kind of nice. Like this is actually one of the ones that you mentioned that doesn't focus on anything to do with the Force.
Yeah, exactly.
But in this case, it focuses on another neat aspect: the ships and racing.
Yes, yeah. So it's essentially Wedge Antilles. He has like a flight academy, and it's Family Racing Day, gentlemen.
And where he also likes to hawk his own merchandise.
Yes.
I was like, this is probably another one of my favorites. I mean, I might be expressing a little bit of bias because I'm a big fan of Aardman's work.
Well, we all are.
It's like, have you guys noticed my Gromit impression?
No. We remember it's in the record books. It's the best thing you've ever done, Jacob.
Yep.
Ever. It's the best thing you're ever going to do as well.
I guess you could say I've peaked.
Yep.
All right,
absolutely peaked.
All right, folks. The podcast over. Good night, everybody.
Yep, we did the Gromit impression. We're out. Peace out.
But yeah, it's like I mean, I wouldn't call this like It's like I'm also kind of a sucker for like they're kind of like like I said, it's like it's probably one of the most visually distinct episodes, which is kind of saying something. It's like it's a more kind of simple style, like like it has a traditional Aardman flair. Like even if you didn't know who was making it, didn't know who was making it, you would just see these characters like, oh, it's Aardman.
Yeah, initially I thought we were gonna maybe go. I mean, to be fair, none of these have really done this yet, so I don't know why I was expecting it. But for a moment, I thought we were gonna say it was like Hera in her teenage years for a moment. And of course, when you thought for more than the second of like, hey, Green Twilight character who's a pilot, and then it's like, oh wait, well, Hera obviously is a very different lineage with her parents, so it would never work out this way unless we really just egregiously like, no, forget that canon, man. We're just gonna get rid of this mother.
I mean, Hera was a teenager during the Bad Batch era.
Yeah, exactly. So
like when we literally see her as a teenager during the Bad Batch, so that wouldn't line up.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. So, like I'm saying from a distance, you think, oh my god, Aardman might be doing like something with Hera, and they're like, oh wait, no, they're not doing.
I mean, to be fair, that would have been interesting though.
Yeah. Regardless, so Annie is the character. Annie's embarrassed by her mom. I think it's like Kalina or something. And like her mom basically is like she drives like kind of this this kind of laundry machine looking ship.
Jalopy, basically.
Yeah. It's this laundry machine looking jalopy of a spaceship.
Or you could say, it's a hunk of junk.
Yep. Oh yeah. I love the design of it though. I love how it looks. I love it. It looks very living. Again, I appreciate good spaceship design, and I think it's no Razor Crest. I mean, God knows what nothing's going to top the Razor Crest, but this looks really.
R.I.P. Razor Crest.
I'm more of a Zeppo guy, to be honest.
Really? Okay.
No explanation. Just really okay.
Anyway. So yeah, basically, we're racing the snobby girl and the rest of the gang, and
Lord Monarch has this observation. I'm impressed that Annie would have money to get into the. Who knows? Maybe it's a public academy.
That's the thing. Honestly, I got kind of a public academy kind of vibe there. But then again, Antilles is really cashing in, so I think the money's involved.
That's entirely possible.
No, he's cashing in. No, he's cashing in on his name because that's how he's able to make the school free.
Oh,
yeah, that makes sense. Capitalism.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
All right.
But it is kind of nuts that we got Wedge back in his original actor too for it as well.
It's not like he's doing much else, It's good.
I know, but remember, he could have appeared in the sequel trilogy, but he turned it down.
There's a fair point.
So
but we got Greg Grunberg though.
Yep. Basically, just putting it standing up to the whole snobby kid and her mother kind of story, and the whole your mother embarrasses you, and then your parent embarrasses you, then you actually turned out they're they're way better at what they're doing than the snobby kid and her parent is.
It's got a nice moral and literally ties into the title with the whole we've had the whole dramatic I am your father, but what's the most kind of uplifting version of that? I'm your mother.
Is he the most embarrassing?
It's like of course I embarrass you. I am your mother.
Exactly.
Overall, this shirt is pretty light. I mean, it's kind of to be expected, but what it makes up for, that it definitely makes up for in charm and obviously expertly crafted claymation.
The humor is great. I love to say this. I was laughing out loud from beginning to end.
The baby Wookiee gang,
and a lot of dry British humor as well.
Oh yeah,
it's like that. She's up. Yeah, exactly.
I love the design of Z1. Like the little, it's kind of like what if you took a Slinky dog and you combined it with R2D with an astromech? It looks adorable.
I love how it initially kind of looks like just another standard little astromech, but then it stretches out to it's like their family dog.
I know, I love it.
And just this is probably the most mundane of all the shorts if you think about it. But I know you're Dragon. I know you're a sucker for the mundane.
Yep.
Would you say this is probably the most mundane out of all of them?
Well, of all the shorts, yeah.
Like, yeah, I mean, it is kind of nice to just have this. I would kind of like to see Aardman do more, and I was actually kind of surprised to see that Aardman was even doing anything with Star Wars in the first place. But it was a welcome addition, and they're definitely like showing that they haven't lost their touch.
I just want to see Aardman do more. Period. Because I love those guys.
I mean, that is true. I mean, didn't they just recently do another Shaun the Sheep movie?
Well, I mean, right now they're doing the sequel to Chicken Run, but you're right. They
Oh
recently
yeah,
did a Shaun the Sheep movie sequel, so you know
oh yeah, oh yeah, Chicken. I forgot they were doing another Chicken Run.
they're doing another Chicken Little, and there's a
Chicken Run.
I don't know if it's up what up. Yep, sorry.
It's a Chicken Little.
I know, yeah, Chicken Run. They're doing another Chicken Run. I here's why, because they're gonna have like chicks and like like little. They're gonna have like I forget what they're calling them, but they're gonna have like the next generation of the chickens. So they're gonna be. I don't think they're just calling them chicks. I don't know if they're calling them nuggies or what, but they're like this little like the next generation. Anyway, point being, they're also working on another Wallace and Gromit thing. I think it's going to be I heard it was going to be a movie, but it could be more shorts. I'm not sure.
Who are they going to get to replace Wallace, or did they already get somebody?
Well, they said they got somebody, but I don't know who.
Because I remember his original voice actor Peter Salas passed away.
Well, yeah, that's yeah.
And I know I'm joking that of course nobody they don't have to replace Gromit because obviously he doesn't even have a voice in the first.
Well, Jacob, don't be modest. I mean, you're withholding some secrets right now. I know there's like a strike going on, but at some point, buddy, when that clears up, they're going to stick to what they promised. They're going to get you to voice Gromit because your impression is beyond flawless. And well, I can't remember the last time I heard Gromit in that impression, but I'll tell you, man, when you do, it's top tier. It's flawless. I mean, Hollywood's going to be calling any minute now.
It's NDA's Dragon.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure. I know you can't officially say anything, but if you winked, I mean, I think we all know what it means.
Like what Warp Monarch says, like, why do these alien kids make fun of a Wookiee? Even a baby Wookiees can tear your head off.
Yeah, more like your arms, but yes.
Speaking of like Australian like stuff earlier, I'd like to kind of like to see like a Lego Star Wars short in one of these things.
I mean, that is a good point.
Because
Lego.
Because Animal Logic did like which is an Australian studio, I believe, did the animation for the Lego movies.
Really?
I think they're Australian. Let me double check on that.
I don't know if I didn't realize they were Australian.
Animal Logic. Either way, whether or not they're Australian or not, I'd still like to see them do like a Lego short for Visions.
It would make sense. At some point, they probably should do that.
The Lego Animal Logic is an Australian animation visual effects studio based in Sydney, New South Wales, and Australia.
Well, there you go then. Okay, let's move on.
Apparently, they're also in Canada and Los Angeles. But either way, so I believe that brings us to Journey to the Dark Head from Studio Mir, South Korea. And Dragon, I know you're familiar with this one.
Yes, I am. So this is the other. So of the three studios, I think the biggest, most recognizable of the studios, you had. I mean, technically there's four, but I mean, let's just say there's again you had Aardman at the top, and then you had probably Cartoon Saloon because it's got Oscar nominations, and then you have Studio Mir in terms of like I think the thing most people have seen, even if they didn't know the name. Where Studio Mir, these guys did their top tier Korean studio. They did Legend of Korra, did Young Justice when it got brought back from cancellation, Harley Quinn, the animated series. These guys do phenomenal work. And
basically a lot of overseas outsourcing animation.
Yep, I believe primarily. I mean, they stuck around after it, but I mean, I think they really got their break on Korra with season 2, in which many people were divisive on that season of Korra, but the Studio Mir episodes they loved.
Hey, so that basically is what they're most famous for, is like they're outsourced, the work that they were outsourced to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
sorry,
Rohith, but how much original work they did, like how much stuff that they did themselves?
Well, I don't know offhand, but I know there is a number of things that they did themselves.
So it's kind of like a lot of Japanese studios kind of thing, where they're like obviously known for their own works, but also doing like stuff for like Disney, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, that kind of thing.
I don't know how extensive it is, but they are. I think they are mostly known for being outsourced. But you're right, though. There is stuff that they do.
They've done a lot for Warner Bros. Animation. I'm just looking at their Wikipedia thing. It's like they've done The Death of Superman, the
Yep.
2018 one, Mortal Kombat Legends, both Scorpion's Revenge and Battle of the Realms. They did Batman Soul of the Dragon, Batman Superman, Battle of the Super Sons. They've done DC Showcase Sergeant Rock, DC Showcase Death, and Batman Death in the Family.
Yep.
Well, dang.
Yeah, top tier. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff here. I don't know story wise if it's as strong as some of the other stuff. Here's the thing: I think we have a great premise for this one.
I think this is like probably one of the most like visually impressive ones of the 2D shorts.
Well, of course, yeah, but I think visually it's very dazzling. Story wise, I think there's like maybe a bit of a lull between set pieces, but it is good. So I love how the big thing I love. I think what really comes alive is when we get this Toll character. The Toll. I'm butchering the pronunciation of his name, but Tool. Then
Toll.
you have like
Toll or Toll. And they like say it with like 2 syllables or something like that.
Yeah, so Tool. Him going up against the Sith that killed his master, Bichan. This guy, he's I love that flashback. It's just very enthralling. It's the fact that this guy,
And I really love the Sith design with like that little like chain whip or chain tail or something.
yeah, he's got the chain tail. He's got like the long kind of cloth looking mask and everything, and that's the thing. I love that he killed his master and then he burned his face so horrifically. But again, off screen, it's still on Disney. And just the fact that it's like this corrupting. He can see that he's corrupting his purity, and he can kind of sense like this kid's destined to become a Sith. So the most fascinating thing about this short to me, that I love in the writing, I love in kind of our storytelling, is it's a thin line between light side and dark side, between the Sith and the Jedi. And this short has a lot in common with Sith. The first short that we had of the assortment here this season. And I really like that. I like how we're telling a similar story, but it's very different the way we're going about it.
Like I kind of like the whole like prophecy angle, like how they're telling the prophecy.
Speaking of which, we have the girl Aura. She's dealing with these premonition stones, and she wants to go with like the root of it and the source. And basically, our moral is it's kind of like matter. You can't destroy it, because again they feed into each other. The light feeds into the dark.
No, Rohith, how are you coming into this one?
I like the animation a lot. I will say I think story wise, I feel like this one I feel like this short I think could have worked the best as a movie. Like,
Yeah.
An animated feature, because I think like the relationship between it's done as best as it can with a little bit of short time and the voice actor. So it's interesting that we haven't really talked much about the voice acting in this, and what's an interesting contrast as for the first season. Second season doesn't really have much like big name celebrity voices for the English components, but for this one, it's like Ashley Park voices Ara, and she's was in like Crazy Rich Asians and like Netflix's Beef, and that's a great show. I recommend everyone checking that out. And fun fact, well, I don't know, depending upon how you all know this individual. So Tool is voiced by Eugene Lee Yang, who's one of the Try Guys, which is which I remember seeing that, and then didn't realize that was him voicing Tool until the credits. Like, oh wow, he's just great. And also, Beachon is voiced by the great Daniel Day Kim, and he's not like his voice, his performance was one of my favorite parts of this short. And it's like, man, I kind of want Daniel Day Kim to do more voice acting, especially the way he played this Sith.
And Daniel Day Kim is a name I recognize.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's the only name I've heard of the Try Guys, but as far as names go, I think that's the only one I recognize. It's like
I like the lore I like the lore thing about, there's this like cult or this religious sect that can see into either the past and future and just record it through these stones.
Yeah, it's kind of like Watcher rules, like we can watch, we can't interfere.
It's almost kind of It also kind of reminded me. At first I thought it was going to kind of like go about a Minority Report kind of direction too.
A what direction?
Minority Report.
Oh, okay.
So it's the Tom Cruise movie with the
Yeah, but not really because they just it's a premonition, but they act on it all the time though.
And basically, and the whole concept of future crime, like are they guilty? Like if someone guilty of a crime they didn't commit, haven't committed yet, basically kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Like basically one of Spielberg's best movies of the 2000s.
So we got great action in this thing. I love Ara saving the tool, in the climax.
I love their chemistry. Like like they're just like they're constant, that kind of like they're butting heads, and then obviously they obviously become friends and all that. And I just love their chemistry and their journey together.
The natural dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like of a Jedi and his pilot.
Yeah. All right.
Even though it was the pilot's idea to go there in the first place.
That is true. Like she's technically, the one. Like he's in service to her. So yeah.
But as they pointed out, they both needed the trip. Like for her to like to realize that not everything is black and white, and for him to like actually get a bit of hope.
A little mundane detail. I like the white floor, like the lit floor for the Jedi, because they're the light side, just a big old light on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, let's see. So I guess we should transition then.
Definitely another visually distinct one with this one. We have the Spy Dancer from Studio La Cachette in France.
Okay, now this is a special one. This is like the fourth studio in terms of like the big, the memorable ones. This studio is really important. This is Gendy's studio. Gendy Tarkovsky. He goes to these guys for a Primal and the new show that he's doing right now, Unicorn.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but seriously, the work on Primal and this, it's
I had no idea they did Primal.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I saw this, I saw the art, so I was like, that's got to be the Primal guys. And I looked into it, like, oh my god, it is them.
Well, Tarkovsky has good taste.
Well, of course he's got good taste. Yes.
They should call him Tastekovsky.
And what's crazy is that
I apologize for that. Sorry.
What's looking at it's like they also did like an animated short for Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that they only were just founded in 2014, so they're barely a decade in, and they've done like this kind of work. So that's like,
so they've already done like a work on an Emmy-nominated show by one of the most celebrated modern creators and television creators in history. Mm-hmm. Something for Netflix, and a work in the Star Wars universe. You got to say that is a pretty impressive pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, in a sense, not directly, in a sense, Gendy's tangentially back in Star Wars again.
Gendy didn't really have anything to do with this episode.
Well, that's why I said tangentially. So he's like not there at all working on this, but it's just kind of like it's kind of transitive process. It's like, well, he worked on it back then, and we're doing Star Wars with some people that worked with Gendy a lot. So
it's like a 6 degrees of separation kind of thing.
Fine, yeah, there you go.
Like I would honestly like to see him do like a short for this, to be honest.
Well, he's a busy man.
I know he's a busy man, but like, speaking of and also like, I love like the parallels for this and Imperial and like World War II France.
I know, that's my favorite part of this. Actually, I love that we're doing like a cabaret sort of thing right now. We're like, it's a wartime cabaret. We're bringing the stormtroopers in to keep them calm, keep them pacified, but also track them and bug them, and we're gonna kill their leaders.
That kind of thing is like actually based in reality.
I know, yeah, it's what it's great about it. It's authentic to what we kind of like do in Star Wars at times. We're kind of paralleling the whole the World War II aesthetic.
I was thinking more like Mata Hari, but I could definitely see the cabaret influence.
And as far as like the 2D stuff, like this is probably like the most interesting visual style outside of probably Screecher's Reach, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I love like the kind of like the thick, the flowing lines. It almost kind of looks like a moving painting.
It animates very well because of that.
Yeah,
it's like, and of course the visual flair is like one of the most spectacular things in this episode. Like just like the color palette is just like, oh wow.
especially when they do the contrast between the present setting and then the flashbacks to the main character seeing her baby being taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which of course is another very interesting aspect of the storytelling, and of course another story that has something to do with the Force.
Again, something Louis, I think, is her name, or since it's some take
Chloe.
on Louis. Yes, Louis. She, I I love the way we animate her dancing, which is this very artful dance with the flowing outfit, and she's like sneaking these little tracers on the stormtroopers. But my favorite aspect of this episode is of this short is there's very much like a Captain America Winter Soldier conflict here, and I love it. It's I mean not verbatim because the kid wasn't brainwashed. Well, we don't know. It's the Empire; they might have brainwashed him. The point being,
Well, I guess the proper term here would be more indoctrinated.
lots of things. He was indoctrinated one way or another. The point being, he's been so indoctrinated. We had the fact that she's. It's such an excellent moment where we play that realization of okay, she's done this whole this whole elaborate in kind of inglorious esque kind of plan like Tarantino's Inglorious, and it's just this moment where she's like
Like
about
she thinks she sees the guy who took her son away from her.
yeah. She
But
ends
then
up
and then when she tries to basically shank him with her long blade, which is cool,
yeah.
she realizes like, oh crap, that's not the kid. That's not the man who took my son. That is my son.
You know what's one of the great things about the studio, and again, this is maybe a kind of a party to what Gendy Tarkovsky's has gotten. I don't know how much of this is just the studio being this good, or how much of this is just like Gendy, what he did on Primal. But the fact that like many Gendy Tarkovsky things of the animation, what he brings out in the animation studios is, you could put the episode, you could put whatever you're watching on mute, and you'd still visually hit all the beats you need to, and you kind of have that here with just the studio doing it on their own. It's the fact of like have like. You can connect exactly what's going on.
I mean, especially with Primal, considering there's literally no dialogue in majority of the episodes.
Well, that's true in Primal's case, yes. But yeah, just this great moment of like the realization of oh my god, that's my son. I can't kill him, and then she's just trying to get him to see a reason. Then it turns into like the full on Winter Soldier conflict of like, hey, you need to understand who you are. And they get into this great fight, and it's this thing where again, I like how she can outclass her son here, but she doesn't want to, and like she's like breaking his blade, which again, I like when they're doing their fight, his blade is being wielded unconsciously, like the way she wields her blade.
Mm-hmm.
It's like some things you just can't get rid of, even in your own blood. It's almost like an instinct.
Exactly. So just visually, just very striking, intense battle here, and just I love her pleading with him and all that. It's just great.
And it ends ambiguously too. It's like he might reconsider, or he might not even think about it ever again.
Yep. So honestly, this one might be my favorite of all the shorts this season. I really love this one.
I think this is definitely in my top 3 as well.
All right.
Like I said, I can't really pick a number 1, unfortunately. But it's definitely like one of my top favorites. I like French culture. I took French in high school. So I really just kind of fell in love with this whole thing.
You're a Francophile?
A minor one, but yeah.
Oui,
yes.
All right.
I'm not technically saying yes in 2 different languages, but
well, I know I was saying yes twice, Jacob.
And then I said oui, yes, which is but I'm more of a Japanophile now than I am a Francophile. But I still harbor that love of France within my heart.
All right.
Should we move on to episode 7?
Let's do it.
Which brings us to the Bandits of Golak from 88 Pictures out of India.
So yeah, these guys, Jacob and I are familiar with them, are very familiar with them. These are the guys that did Del Toro's Arcadiaverse,
and they're like one of the vendors. They one of the people who did did the animation work.
Yeah, pretty much through everything, not just Troll Hunters, but Troll Hunters and Three Below and Wizards, and presumably the movies as well. So they're probably there from start to finish.
I mean, I'm assuming for the movies they probably had like a couple studios working on it.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, assumingly they were there as well with everyone. But yeah,
I mean, yeah. So, like, so I honestly didn't know that 88 Pictures was did anything with Tales of Arcadia until until I started researching this thing. And so, like, they're known for their work in Tales of Arcadia. I was like, huh, what do you know?
It's I wasn't in love. I didn't really like this short as much as the others. I'll be honest with you. I think for the most part, I think where Dragon's point about their seeing patterns, like I feel like the story here was like a lesser version of the other shorts that had similar story beats.
Other force sensitive kid.
Yeah,
but
and this force sensitive kid, I'll be honest, was a little bit annoying to my taste.
it's like, and as I pointed out, though, it is kind of the thing that sets it apart is the cultural take on it.
It 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 is pretty cool. I'll say this, and maybe I don't know if I want to jump too far ahead. Seeing the Punjab like Inquisitor was pretty cool.
Right?
Just the way his designs, like mixing like Indian cultural design with like Sith design with Inquisitor design, that was like really cool.
It's like the visual design, I think, is this episode's particular strongest point. Like,
For me, oh, go on.
and for a moment, considering the Trey and the whole Miss Marvel that we just reviewed like less than a year ago, I honestly thought they were going to do like a partition parallel kind of thing. I mean, maybe that would have been too much, but I almost thought that's where they were going with this.
Initially, when I saw like the bandits and horse riding, it's like, oh, this is going to be like a Indian version of like the Great Train Robbery or something like that.
I mean that would have been a pretty interesting take on that too. Like, but no, but I mean, honestly, I would have liked to see that. Sorry, Rohit, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No. But what it's interesting because it's like this is the one where you see explicit like I'm what's like on one hand I really appreciate there being Indian cultural aspects of it, but the fact that I'm familiar and like versed in that culture, it kind of takes me out because like, well, it kind of doesn't feel like Star Wars in a way. Because the thing is, for other Star Wars projects where you can see you see influences from other real world like cultures and histories, but you don't see them like recreated like one to one. If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's like it feels just like, all right, let's take just sort of things you see in Bollywood or movies or just like stuff about India and then transpose it on a Star Wars setting rather than mixing Star Wars and having it giving like Indian influences that like for a keen observer they can notice, but still being in the Star Wars sort of deal.
Like, speaking of, like, this might be a bit of a stress, but speaking of Bollywood, I would kind of like to see like a Bollywood musical short in the Star Wars universe. Am I the only one?
No, I don't really feel compelled.
I mean, there was like a rock themed rock band sort of a deal.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind just for I would see it just to see how it worked.
I mean, it wouldn't have to be like a full like musical episode. I think it could be like inspired by the Bollywood musical, like have a
I mean,
musical.
honestly, I don't need it as a gimmick. You know, I don't want to force it. Like, hey, let's do a Bollywood Star Wars, Wars.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it'd have to be forced. I think it could be kind of fit seamlessly into the story.
Yeah, regardless.
You could have like a planet where people communicate in song, and so you do sort of Bollywood through there, or
I mean, there's kind of hints of that in the final episode.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's from South Africa, but that's
no. What I really I think the best part of it was just the fight between the Punjab Inquisitor and the old Indian lady with like her dual blade lightsaber. It's like, oh man, and for me, like I just wasn't interested into the brother and sister dynamic because the sister was just so annoying because like all the trouble was caused by this. Like she was kind of like she was like the worst version of the sister from like the Into the Stars, whereas Into the Stars, like the little sister being the little sister, like the trouble causes because she has like it comes from a good place. Whereas for her, she's just too impatient to just not wait until they're out of danger to play her freaking wooden flute, and it's like, Oh my gosh! So that just was like, and then when they eventually do get it, it's like, oh, I kind of wish they just start from like they arrive at the thing and are trying to hide, and then Punjab Buzzer is there. That's more interesting. Or you focus on the old Indian lady like that. I feel like those there's more interesting parts of it near the end that just kind of like okay, I kind of feel like most of the shorter just wasn't into it as much.
I mean, for me, I really like the train sequence. I love like the confined. I like this confined setting. And the fact the girl's in jeopardy, and and her brother. The fact it's a brother and sister, and he's trying to get to her, and we have that weird gag where it's like, man, they're really going after me for these lollipops. Like, why?
Those dude, you have to admit, those lollipops did look good though.
No, they did. Yeah.
Like, what do they call them again in this short?
I don't know if it's like Lum Lum or something, or I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyway, but I for me on that, and then the Inquisitors are the highlights of this, and everything else does unfortunately just kind of fall in between, and that's kind of a healthy portion of the thing of the short. So we kind of then we retread certain things like something we already hit with the with Screecher's Reach, where we're kind of making like you're doing something, only it's like more of a moral thing, like, hey, do this for her own good, send her off with
Still think
send her off.
I still rather watch Screecher's Reach again though.
So that's the thing. I mean, aside from the set pieces,
I
I'm not
just
in love with this one.
I just realized that old lady could be just taking the sister through the path,
Yeah.
or that the hidden path. I was thinking, like, oh, okay, that's probably. I mean, I don't know timeline where it was, but I was thinking it's like, oh, that's what probably where she's taking her through. But no, I think it is sort of unfortunate that like the interesting parts happened at the end of the short or near the end. And it's like you wish that was kind of the majority, or if it wasn't the train, you wish it was kind of like a great train robbery, and then you would have a lot of momentum, like the brother and sister like working together to stop the train robbery or just escape out of the train. But
Yeah, I can. Yep, I can see where you're coming from on that one.
All right.
All right, so should we move on to 8?
Yeah.
That brings us to The Pit.
This is a good one.
From Dar Stagio in Japan, and also assisted with Lucasfilm out of the United States, obviously.
So Lucasfilm, obviously, we know what those guys have done, but on the flip side,
So Dragon, what has Lucasfilm done?
well, there's this little thing called Clone Wars. It's an animated show. No one really talks about it.
Like,
Um,
weren't they also the people who did that Indiana Jones thing?
no, I think that was it was a Lucasfilm.
Didn't Steven Spielberg do that one?
No, that was 1941.
All right.
Anyway.
Now about Dar Stagio.
Yeah, these guys, they're known for doing some of the Castlevania anime and some of the Castlevania stuff. They did there's this recent Pokemon film. I don't know if it was like just one of the readaptations of one of the old stories or not. I don't really follow it closely. I don't know intrinsically a lot of like directly what they've done because I'm not familiar with Castlevania, and I don't really keep all the new Pokemon stuff. So yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
I do know one of the directors, Justin Ridge, is like known for his work on Rebels.
well, that tracks then, especially given the rebellion kind of theme of this one.
It's like this might come must like honestly, this one's just okay to me. I thought it was like kind of not as interesting as the other ones.
Here's the thing, I like this one on the rewatch. I think I liked it more. I thought this 2D style was great. Again, I just wish it didn't end on. We did not need everything's great, but then the very end's like, and the daughter, just for reasons because it's Star Wars, she's lifting that kyber crystal because force sensitive kid yet again. It's like they literally shoehorned it in there at the very end. Like we didn't need that last bit.
But Dragon, she saw the light.
God. Anyway, but yeah, here's the thing. I like, I love the idea that we're I think it's inspiring stories. The idea that, admittedly, we're depending on who you ask, we are kind of pulling a lot from Rises here. It's like we're climbing out of a big pit.
Well, it kind of reminds. Plus, it also kind of reminds me of Holes.
I mean, we weren't in that big a hole in holes, though.
I know, but just saying pit holes.
All right, all
You
right.
could
Anyway,
say that these people developed a lot of character.
huh. Anyway, I. But the other thing, I like the idea. We're mining for kyber crystals, and there are some parallels, and it's interesting because again, we do have a South African studio after this, but it's what we have here. I think we're enslaving people, and the majority of the characters in this, at least all of our principal characters, are black. Which I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting we went there with Star Wars. It's kind of like we had like David Diggs as Crux, as like the main guy who climbs out of the pit and everything. And I'm invested in his struggle. I'm invested in like you climbing up there like little badgers helping him like with little burrowing holes and everything. And yeah, just this great thing like the man pleading for everyone's life, like into the public. It's the question of are people going to listen to him or write him off as a crazy man? I was very impressed that we killed this guy off. We tossed him back in the pit, and that fall is going to kill anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, I don't know. It had like had a really nice ending, almost kind of that Bug's Life kind of lesson of like at the end of the day we're gonna, the ants are gonna outnumber the grasshoppers. In this case, we're always gonna be able to outman the bad guys if we can all band together and put on a strong front. So I thought that was
It
all nice.
it was very much. It was kind of interesting enough. It felt like something that could have been. I mean, maybe the way that it ended maybe is a little bit more optimistic, but I feel like I could see this like scenario play out in like an episode of Andor,
Yeah.
especially with the emphasis of like solidarity and like advocating agitation and resistance against like the empire,
Hmm.
um, and just speaking truth to power. So, and that was just really, I do appreciate the way it ended, where it's like the people just had the lights came and saw, and then they looked like they left, and they just brought the ships down. It's like, okay, that really, there is sort of an idea that, even if people are, benefit from some level of suffering from others, if they're made aware of it, they'll make an effort to make a change. And so that's something that, I think was a good note to end on. But I do agree the kyber crystal thing with the girl could have just been taken out.
And as I said, as I was saying, it's like I like that. I don't dislike any of the shorts in this season. Like all of them are good and all of them are interesting of their own way. All of them are obviously expertly animated and greatly told. But like, if I was doing this, would probably be like lower on my list in terms of ones I like. Honestly, again, don't really know why. Just like it just didn't grab me the same way some of the others did.
I think it's a lot of it is just the pacing of it, right? Because it's like it doesn't really get going till Crux like gets out of the pit and
Yeah, because we are digging a hole for at least the first act of this thing.
I mean, and look, I'm not someone who I'm not someone who like everything needs to be fast paced or doesn't hold my attention. I'm not like one of those people, but I'm just saying it didn't really get into, as you said, until like it didn't really get interesting until he got to the city, and that was like halfway through the episode.
Yep.
I mean, so so don't get me wrong, I still really like this short, and the message is interesting. Message is great, but it's just getting there. It's just like it was as much of an effort as him trying to climb out of the pit, and who knows, maybe that's the point.
Yeah. Okay, and that brings us to the last one.
Like another one of my favorites of this season, actually, Owl's song.
yeah, this is
from Triggerfish out of South Africa.
yeah, this was my favorite of the shorts. It's beautiful. The animation is just the most beautiful I've seen in both of these volumes, and
I love how fuzzy everything looks.
yeah, it feels like it feels like I kind of want to roll up in a blanket and like just eat some cookies and drink some milk, and it just felt so kind of like a weird. It felt sort of comforting, just the way it's animated. There's just it gives you kind of the vibes of like being like an Animal Crossing or something, kind of like
It's like you could actually like see like the little like fuzz coming off of the characters and everything. How basically that series is like I believe cloth animation, like cloth style.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I just like really loved like how warm and fuzzy this whole short felt just from the get go. Just a dragon. What else has Triggerfish done?
Yes, Triggerfish. They believe it or not, they've done a lot of like Disney Junior stuff, and some of they've done their own stuff that's kind of like kids direct to video type stuff, real forgotten kind of stuff aside from the Disney stuff that they have done. And again, it's really like kind of like low tier stuff, like really just kind of like okay, Disney's kind of just put out a product just for like hey, look, kid stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing really of major substance. These guys are kind of that's an easy. It doesn't match up with what they usually. It seems like kind of like that bargain bin kind of like kind of CG affair of like just like okay, it's just something you'd find like in a bargain bin of like a Walmart or something.
So this one kind of seems like it has their more personal touch to it.
That's what I'm saying. This is probably the best thing they've ever done, I'd imagine.
I think they might be actually be doing something original coming out soon. I might be mistaken.
That's what I'm saying. They've done original things, but from what I can tell, with the original stuff does not like from a distance, looking at like posters and just the summations, it does not look impressive.
Like I said, I think I might be mistaken the studio for something else, but I think they might be working on something else, like a new like anime style something.
Okay.
I might be confusing with another studio.
I gotta be honest. Aside from the visuals on this one, I'm not crazy about it because mainly there are a number of things. I think we start off really interesting. We're kind of laying out like like okay, kyber crystals, and then it's like the story on this one really just. I don't like the idea of convoluting the kyber crystals. I don't like the idea of like, okay, so this girl sings, and it kind of purifies the kyber crystals, or it makes them blow up. It's like it's like a sound thing, or is it like it's like?
I think my take on it was that for Ao's like voice, there is like she has sort of a special connection in the force or through the force, and the way she expresses that through song, just kind of like how for certain cultures like singing and whatnot, there is sort of like a spiritual like place you go to in that regard. So I think with her singing, just as the Sith can like corrupt a kyber crystal through their influence, there has to be a way to purify said kyber crystal.
Can they do the Sith corrupt the kyber crystal? Or are you saying the broad sense the way they use the?
Actually corrupt the kyber. That the red kyber, like the red lightsaber, is because they take a normal kyber crystal and through the dark side corrupt it to emanate the red glow.
That's literally how red lightsabers are made.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. Okay. All right. Okay, so I get actually thinking on that. Just I didn't know about the whole like we could purify one of those. I mean, I guess it still feels like a bit of a leap. That's how we purify it.
I mean, technically, we've never seen purification before. We've obviously seen corruption, but this is the first time we've ever seen purification of a kyber crystal. And of all ways to do it, this is a pretty interesting way to do that.
I mean, look, it's interesting. It's something I would chalk up to. Okay, we're doing the anthology take and the whole cultural like read on like, okay, guys, how would you show the Force in a way we've never shown it before? That's what it feels like, and I mean that's interesting. Sure.
I really appreciated this episode because it emphasized really the fantasy element, and the thing is, Star Wars is a space fantasy, and outside the Jedi, we don't really emphasize like the spiritual cosmology of the Force as much.
The original movie is like basically a fantasy adventure in space with wizards and knights.
Yeah, no. But what I'm saying is like we don't. It's like the story doesn't really focus on like the Force and like the one spiritual cosmological significance. It's like the Force is there just like as like magic, right?
Yeah.
But this was just more about like, oh, this girl like has like a special like
it's a
divine,
it's a magical voice. It's just like a song that can pure your soul. In this case, it's a song that can, like in some cultures, obviously, singing can ward off evil.
Yeah.
So in some way, it makes sense for them to be able to ward off the corruption of kyber crystals,
or like cleanse the soul, or pure and people pass on history and storytelling through song. So, especially African cultures, yeah. So because like African cultures, I don't know. I presume. I mean, I might be correct. I may be wrong with this, but I presume African cultures, like say native indigenous cultures of the United States, like there's not a lot of written forms. So they had to pass their like traditions and all their their histories through oral communication, and songs is a big part of that. So I think that's definitely an influence part of it. Also, I think I'm just personally sappy for like the relationship between Awa and her dad. I thought that was just like cute, you know.
Now, not a lot of positive father daughter stuff in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean I mean, A New Hope, if, like Darth Vader basically tortures his daughter, and like nobody really acknowledges that in universe.
Well,
But
to be fair, he had no idea she was his daughter.
true, but like when you know, but when you learned about Leia being Vader's daughter, and considering Vader was like just the implication of him going after his own daughter to corrupt her, put Luke in a, you know, I don't know if Darth Vader is that, you know, willing to provide mercy or have a soft spot for his daughter. But that's neither here nor there. Um, it is pretty interesting, you know, like the sort of idea of like specific planets of people that are focused on just mining the kyber crystal and then just hand it off to the Jedi for them to construct their lightsabers.
And it is kind of interesting that there is technically a Jedi or in this episode, but she's not really a major focus of it.
Yeah.
So Al and her father works in the mines and was to keep her away from that out of the fear that could cause harm. She actually accidentally burned him.
Yeah, that's the thing that's the other thing I kind of having a little trouble with the idea of like, hey, why? It's like she's just kind of like she sees her father, with the crystal, and she's doing a song. The impression is that this is not the first time this has happened, and he says, "Why are you doing this?" Like, yeah, why is she doing this? She knows it's going to hurt people and cause things to potentially explode. Like, why would she keep doing that?
My thinking was that he just sees like her singing, her kind of connecting with the kyber crystal, and just out of like an overabundance of caution and concern, does not want her to go as far as she could with that connection. So, yes, it did cause like the initial crumbling of stuff, but it was through her voice that she's able to like purify the kyber crystal and show her potential to be of an asset to the Jedi in like purifying other kyber crystals like we found throughout the galaxy. So, I think that's just something where, that's sort of the arc for that to realize is that like, oh, his being so overprotective of his daughter, to a fault, like he has to let go of that and let her, and it's kind of the one story in which like a child willingly joins the Jedi rather than the Jedi just kind of maybe not coercing the parents to take the kid, but like having much more of a say or much more of an influence on the kid's decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And fun fact, the Jedi whose voice in this is voiced by Cynthia Erivo, and she was in Bad Times at El Royale, which is a good movie.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize she was in Pinocchio.
Which one?
Oh, she was in the
Del Toro
one.
Wait, which one?
The Robert Zemeckis one.
So not the good one.
Not yeah.
Oh well.
Because technically 2 Pinocchio movies came out. Technically 3 Pinocchio movies came out last year.
Yeah.
And only one of them was good.
Yep. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end.
All right. All right, so hold on just a second.
We end on another Force-sensitive kid. That's the end of the season. Okay.
So guys,
I mean, maybe it's a thing where a lot of the animators had really young kids, and so maybe they're like, "Oh, I'll do this and they were really into Jedi." So like, you know what, son or daughter, I'll do this sort of sensitive kids. That way, it's more
Dad, can you compromise your artistic integrity for me, please?
Man, Blue Dragon. What if the animators wanting to do that for their children?
So guys, I posed this question to you: what studio would you like to see do a contributor short to Visions next?
Well, I mean, look, obviously my go-to is going to be Pixar, but it'll never happen. Let's see.
Some people propose Leica.
Leica would actually be my second pick, though, if I had to pick. Because I thought they honestly one of them again looked close enough to Leica. Actually, getting the actual
You,
real deal would be great.
you mean In the Stars, which I think you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, in the stars, yeah, it looks a lot like Leica at first. So I mean, let's go full Leica. Yeah.
I mean, Punk Robot did a really good job with that.
Yep.
Like, so, Rohith, any ideas?
I would figure, considering it's international, I think whichever studios were involved in like films like Persepolis, Waltz with Bashir, any sort of the animated films that get nominated for Best Animated Feature that don't get much obviously attention to American audiences, and they look good when I see just clips of it in the Academy Awards. I want those studios to be involved with Disney in making these shorts because considering the quality and especially the pedigree of these studios, I can't imagine how good future volumes would be if other studios who in the time being get nominated or have been nominated for animated feature alongside the Disneys, the Pixars, the DreamWorks, and whoever, and don't get the recognition, but I think deserve a recognition of their talent to be highlighted through a franchise like Star Wars.
I think the other one would be Ghibli.
But Ghibli kind of already did that whole Grogu and Dust Bunny short.
Oh yeah, you're right. So I guess yeah, never mind.
But to actually see them contribute to Visions would be pretty great.
Yeah.
Like as far as like other places, I don't have a specific studio in mind, but like I'd kind of like to see one from like Mexico or Brazil or something like that. Like,
I guess if I want to go by like countries or just I would like to see. I would be very interested to see an animation studio from Southeast Asia, maybe Thailand, Cambodia, Malay, Vietnam. It'd be cool to see one from South America. I think for Europe, I'd be interested to see animation studio from Germany or Italy because I think they have really considering in light of World War II and all that stuff. I think they have very unique histories and very unique.
I think Italy would probably be the more interesting one of those.
That would actually that'd be
Like I know this might sound a bit weird, but I kind of wanted to see to see Russia's take on Star Wars. I mean, Russia has a bit of interesting history, like Siberia and all that. So
true.
I would kind of like to see. I mean, I know that might sound a bit weird considering what's recently been going on, but
might be a hard sell, right?
Or maybe Eastern European, probably
like Slavic countries.
Yeah, Romania, Hungary, something like that.
I guess it's not like it, but still like
Bulgaria.
But still, Russia. I've studied Russia. Russia has an interesting history. So
sure. Also, I think a studio from
I mean, and there's more to Russia than just what's happened to them recently.
I think a studio in the Middle East would be interesting, especially considering
like UAE or Sudan or something. Well, Sudan's Africa.
Yeah, I was thinking just more if in the lines of just like considering certain. Well, I was thinking maybe more along the lines of like Egypt or maybe Morocco, because
Egypt and Morocco would be pretty cool.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking because especially considering like Star Wars when they film scenes of Tatooine, they film it in Tunisia, and considering Star Wars is influenced by Dune, Dune like a lot of it's kind of dealing with sort of Middle Eastern settings and ideas. It'd be interesting to see like what a studio that is steeped in that culture could bring to the world of Star Wars.
Dragon, any particular place where you're leaning towards?
Well, I mean, I already kind of laid out a few studio suggestions, but I mean, in terms of location, I mean, I think the safest bet's Canada.
I'm surprised. I think China, an animation studio from China is a big get, depending upon I'm surprised a Chinese studio hadn't been brought up for this. I think that would be considered for future volumes, especially because like there's probably some very good Chinese animation studios that like can bring in sort of like classic Chinese art and whatnot into the.
Now the question is like, would you do China or like Taiwan?
Oh man,
I think you should probably go Taiwan.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that might be a bit of a controversial thing. but yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to get too geopolitical here tonight.
I mean, look, honestly, let's be frank. I think the main reason we haven't seen anything from China is just the fact that China China, but I think has issues with Star Wars. I don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah, like Star Wars isn't very popular over in China.
To be fair, nothing's really popular over in China in terms of all the cool stuff. All the cool. Like every time we get a movie going over there, it's like, no, we don't want the movie. Well, why don't you want the movie? We don't want the movie. Like, okay, fine, you don't want the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting this past few years that like Chinese audiences are now more into like Chinese films than
Yeah.
so, which I guess is I think that was always that may have always wasn't going to happen, and I think the pandemic kind of just like accelerated things. But yeah, I was just trying to think about it. It's just like
I don't. One more country that I think would be interesting would be like Scotland, like something basically like the Moors of Scotland.
You could.
I would kind of like to see something in like the island nations like New Zealand.
I was like that. Yeah,
New Zealand would actually. New Zealand's got to do a clone short.
and of course, well, they need to get Weta Studios to animate it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, they would
Does
have to.
Weta Studios do animation?
I mean, Weta Studios is a well-known visual effects studio. So
That's what I'm
like,
saying. It's not a leap that they would do that.
and Industrial Light and Magic animated Rango.
Okay.
Like so it's not a real possibility for special effects studios to do like animation.
Yeah.
Like so Weta Studios or any other New Zealand nations would be actually pretty interesting, or Australia, as we talked about earlier with Animal Logic.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see like a. It'd be funny to see like a bounty hunter sort of a short, from an Australia studio.
So basically, your kind of hope for the future is probably like less the focus on the Force and the Jedi.
Yeah.
We've gotten 2 seasons out of it. I think we can change it up a little bit for the 3rd season.
Something focusing on like the stormtroopers or like as you said, bounty hunters or even droids would be pretty.
Okay, here's one for you. Shadow Monkey. We're gonna give Shadow Monkey the opportunity. What they're gonna do is legitimize Gary the Stormtrooper.
Shadow Monkey.
Well, I hope I'm not butchered. Is that the Robot Chicken Studio, the one that just did the Pinocchio film?
Shadow Monkey. I know. There's like stupid monkey.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I thought it was like Shadow Box or like I know Warm and Stupid Monkey, but
Yeah,
there's
I mean, for Robot Chicken, it's like either Stupid Monkey or Stupid Buddy Studios. And as far as like the Pinocchio one goes, I'm not sure.
Honestly, any studio that has something monkey could sound like a legitimate studio in my head. It's just like I just feel like so many like companies like art or design companies or whatever use kind of that like name to be kishy or just like funny about it. But I actually would like to kind of see like a political. I don't know if you could do like a spy thriller or political something like in the Senate. Then maybe animation studio. I don't know how like cool, like how dynamic it would be, but it would sort of be a more of an interesting slow burn depending upon like how they do it. But
All right. Like so you can see those are our visions for the future.
Yep.
Like so, it's like any closing words, guys?
It's nice to be. Go on.
Yeah. No, you go ahead. I'll go after you.
It's nice to be creative with Star Wars when we can, because this thing with Star Wars is that right now we're in kind of this weird space where, well, frankly, we're not giving space between Star Wars things. So if we're gonna keep putting them out, we got to change it up a little bit. We got to get creative with it. And Visions is always kind of that refreshing, like. Yeah, we've revitalized the creative energy with Star Wars. That's kind of what we need to do, and hopefully we'll be kind of going in some fun new directions, especially if we get another season of Vision. So yeah, well done.
I think overall, Star Wars Visions has certainly been a, I guess I don't know if hidden gem is the right word, but it's certainly been an underrated aspect of Disney's contributions to the Star Wars universe. And with the first season being all anime, it was great to see a variety of different anime studios whose work are known or unknown to people put their spin on certain aspects of Star Wars. And it's even better for this season to have different anime studios around the world to put in the work. I guess, depending upon people's access or availability to access certain animation from outside the U.S., that maybe they'll look at these studios' work, because honestly, with the quality they put in, I just kind of you just kind of hope to support these studios in their own individual contributions, outside of Star Wars. So hopefully, with the third season, any of the future seasons of Visions that are made, we just see great storytellers put in the work, put in great animation, and really tell interesting and unique stories are can that are told in a short form format and are digestible for a general audience to consume and appreciate in the long term. So
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of where you guys are coming from on that one. It's kind of interesting to expand it beyond Japan, as I loved all the work, the animated work in the first season, and of course expanding it to around the world was obviously a nice progressive step, or a nice natural progression in the terms of how things go. So it might be nice to see some maybe we'll get some new blood next time. Maybe we'll see some people see some studios return. Well, maybe, who knows? I hope we do get a season 3, but that might not even be in the cards for all we know. But all I can say is I hope it is. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for us this week as we host our remotes to the next installment calls for the draw. Mano a mano, just Plus and Us.
If I see one more Force-sensitive youngling, I'm going to lose it.
As I keep saying in these Star Wars shows, Dragon is advocating for murder.
Just with Star Wars.